Title: Should schools implement uniform dress codes to promote equality? Introduction. The debate surrounding school dress codes has been a topic of discussion for decades. Proponents argue that implementing uniform dress codes in schools promotes equality, fosters a sense of belonging, and eliminates distractions. On the other hand, opponents believe that dress codes infringe upon students' freedom of expression, reinforce gender stereotypes, and fail to address the root causes of inequality. This article will explore the arguments for and against implementing uniform dress codes in schools, analyzing their potential impact on equality and student well-being, equality, and sense of belonging. 1.1. Minimizing social and economic differences. Advocates for uniform dress codes argue that they help minimize socioeconomic differences among students. By requiring all students to wear the same clothing, regardless of their background, schools aim to create a level playing field and reduce the visibility of disparities in clothing choices. This approach can foster a sense of equality and promote inclusivity, as students are judged based on their character and abilities rather than their attire. 1.2. Fostering a sense of belonging. Uniform dress codes can also foster a sense of belonging and school spirit. When students wear uniforms, they become part of a collective identity associated with their institution. This sense of belonging can contribute to a positive school culture, encourage teamwork, and reduce the potential for social divisions based on clothing choices, eliminating distractions and peer pressure. 2.1. Reducing distractions. Dress codes proponents argue that uniforms eliminate distractions caused by fashion trends, brand logos, and provocative clothing choices. By establishing clear guidelines on appropriate attire, schools can create a focused learning environment where students are less preoccupied with their appearance or comparing themselves to their peers. This can enhance concentration, promote academic engagement, and contribute to a more productive educational experience. 2.2. Mitigating peer pressure. Uniform dress codes can also mitigate the influence of peer pressure related to fashion and clothing choices. Students often face social pressure to conform to specific trends or brands, which can lead to exclusion or feelings of inadequacy for those who cannot afford such clothing. By implementing uniform dress codes, schools aim to alleviate this pressure and reduce the potential for bullying or discrimination based on clothing choices, freedom of expression, and individuality. 3.1. Limiting freedom of expression. Opponents of uniform dress codes argue that they limit students' freedom of expression and individuality. Clothing choices can be a form of self-expression, allowing students to showcase their personality, cultural heritage, or artistic inclinations. By imposing a standard uniform, schools may unintentionally stifle students' creativity and self-identity, hindering their emotional and social development. 3.2. Reinforcing gender stereotypes. Critics of uniform dress codes also contend that they reinforce gender stereotypes. Traditional uniforms often have separate guidelines for boys and girls, perpetuating societal expectations and reinforcing binary gender norms. This can be particularly problematic for transgender and gender non-conforming students, who may feel forced to conform to a dress code that does not align with their gender identity. Addressing the root causes of inequality. 4.1. Superficial approach to equality. Opponents argue that uniform dress codes provide a superficial approach to addressing inequality. While uniforms may temporarily conceal socioeconomic differences, they do not address the underlying issues that contribute to inequality, such as access to resources, quality education, or supportive environments. Critics contend that schools should focus on implementing comprehensive equity measures, including equitable funding, educational opportunities, and support systems, rather than relying solely on dress codes. 4.2. Diversity and inclusion. Promoting diversity and inclusion goes beyond uniform dress codes. Critics argue that creating an inclusive environment requires embracing and celebrating students' diverse backgrounds, cultures, and perspectives. Instead of enforcing uniformity, schools should encourage individuality and provide a platform for students to express their unique identities, as long as it does not infringe upon the rights and well-being of others. Alternatives to uniform dress codes. 5.1. Dress code guidelines. A middle ground approach suggests implementing dress code guidelines that prioritize modesty, appropriateness, and respect, while allowing students to express their individuality. This flexible approach can strike a balance between promoting a positive learning environment and respecting students' freedom of expression. 5.2. Education on self-expression and diversity. Schools can also invest in educational programs that address self-expression, diversity, and inclusivity. By teaching students about the importance of respecting and accepting differences, schools can foster a more tolerant and inclusive environment that goes beyond clothing choices. Conclusion. The question of whether schools should implement uniform dress codes to promote equality is a complex and contentious issue. While proponents argue that dress codes create equality, minimize distractions, and foster a sense of belonging, opponents maintain that they restrict freedom of expression, reinforce gender stereotypes, and fail to address the root causes of inequality. Striking a balance between promoting a positive learning environment and respecting students' rights requires thoughtful consideration and careful examination of the specific context and goals of each school. It is essential for educational institutions to engage in open dialogue with students, parents, and educators to develop policies that prioritize inclusivity, respect individuality, and address the underlying causes of inequality. By considering alternative approaches, such as dress code guidelines and educational programs on self-expression and diversity, schools can create environments that empower students, foster a sense of belonging, and promote genuine equality. Ultimately, the goal should be to create inclusive educational spaces that prepare students for a diverse and interconnected world while respecting their rights and individuality.